Jai Hind all. Today the topic which I am going to cover is the types of cloud business models and uh, different types of clouds in cloud computing. This particular topic comes under unit 1 of the subject cloud computing. These are the contents which we are going to discuss: types of clouds, business models around the cloud, and major players in cloud computing. So, we had already seen what is a cloud. As we are aware that cloud, we are using the services over the internet, and these services which we are saying, it could be your infrastructure based, it could be your platform based, or it could be your application based. So on the basis of this, we are having four different types of cloud: public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud, and community cloud. Now, types of cloud, it says that depending upon the need of the organization and the behavior of the users, we are having four types of cloud. So basically, when we say public cloud, it says that these cloud, they are open for the public users. In the private cloud, we are having these are the clouds which are meant or operated by the organizations privately. Hybrid cloud, this is the combination of public and private cloud. And the community cloud, when we say community cloud, it is a group of organizations. They are coming together and they are performing their activities over the cloud for some specific common cause. So what is a public cloud? The public clouds, they are managed by third parties which provide cloud services over the internet to public. These services, they are available as pay-as-you-go billing mode. That is, these public cloud, the general users, they are using these services, and they are working on pay-as-you-go billing mode. That is, whatever the services you are using, you are paying accordingly. Then in other words, the whole computing infrastructure is located on the premise of cloud computing that offers the cloud services. That is, when we talk about these services are not available on the premise of the customers, whereas these services, they are hosted or installed or are present on the premise of the cloud service providers, and the users, they are using these services with the help of specific user login and passwords which the CSPs, they provide to the customers. The location remains separate from customer, and that is why there is no physical control over the infrastructure, since nothing is present at the user end, that everything is with the CSP. So the users, they cannot control, or they have no control over these services or the data which they are using over the cloud. They offer solutions for minimizing IT infrastructure cost and act as a good option for handling peak loads on the load infrastructure. That is what the benefit they provide: minimize the IT infrastructure cost. The cost will get minimized. Then they act as a good option. That is, when the load is high, then you are provided with the maximum services. When the load is low, at that time you can return the services to the user. They provide good option for small enterprises. That is, if the particular enterprise is a startup, then in that case, at that time the budget is limited. So these enterprises, they can go over the cloud and they can start their business without large upfront investment by completely relying on the public infrastructure for their IT needs. So you could say they provide a competitive edge. That is, they provide a competitive edge to the small industries. So a fundamental characteristics of the public cloud is multi-tenancy. since multiple users are there, so it supports the concept of multi-tenancy. So a public cloud, it is meant to serve multiple users, not a single customer. A user requires a virtual computing environment that is separated and most likely isolated from the users. That is, this particular thing is available over the cloud. If you look at the figure, we are having a CSP. Everything is hosted on the premise of CSP. Then we are having two organizations here, enterprise P, enterprise Q. Now this could be your small scale industry, it could be your SME, and enterprise Q, it may be a big industry in this case. And here if you look, we are having a individual users also. So not only your organizations, but your single users or a group of small users, they also get connected with the cloud and avail these services through cloud service provider. Now the second model is a private cloud. It provides the same benefits of the public cloud, but they are dedicated to a single organization. That is, if all the hardware and the platform or the services which are provided by the CSP, it can be availed only by a single organization. So a private cloud means using a cloud infrastructure or network solely by one customer organization. It cannot be used with other, yet it is remotely located. Now in this case, two things can be possible. That the infrastructure, it could be on premise of the user, or you could say customer, whereas in the case of another model says it could be off premise, that is with the CSP. So both kind of models, they are possible. In the case of the private cloud, the infrastructure, the services, they can be present with the customer, and the cloud service providers, they are providing their teams to manage and to support to provide these services to the organization. In the second concept, all the services, your platform, everything is with the CSP. So both the models, they are supported in the case of private cloud. So the companies, they have an option of choosing on-premise, which is more expensive in this case, but they do have a physical control over the infrastructure. Now in this statement, you could you are having both advantage and the disadvantage. Disadvantage says it is expensive, but what is the advantage? That you are having a full control over this infrastructure, this data and the platform, whereas in the case of the off-premise, there is no control over the data. So according to this, if you look at the figure, we are having two models: on-premise private cloud and externally hosted, or you could say off-premise private cloud. Here we are having a CSP, it is providing the services within the location of the enterprise P or the organization P. Here in this case, the CSP is having the services present at its end, and it is dedicated to the enterprise P. No other service is attached, or you could say no other organization is availing this particular infrastructure. So in other words, private clouds, they are the distributed systems that work on a private infrastructure and providing the users with the dynamic provisioning of computing resources instead of pay-as-you-go model. As in the case of the public cloud, there could be other schemes which take into account the usage of the cloud and proportionally billing the different departments of an or a section of an enterprise. Now this is another particular concept which comes with the private cloud, which is not available in the public cloud. In the public cloud, whatever you use, you pay accordingly, but here in this case, what is happening, maybe in an enterprise P, we are having Suppose departments D1, D2 and D3. One department is heavily using or operating over the network resources, another department is operating moderately, and the other it is using heavily. So according to their usage, they are billed in this case. So what are the advantages of a private cloud? Customer information is protected in this case. In private cloud, security concerns are less since customer data and other sensitive information that does not flow out of the private infrastructure. Then infrastructure ensuring SLAs, that is a service level agreement. Private cloud, they provide the specific operations such as appropriate clustering is possible in this case, data replication is possible, system monitoring and maintenance, and disaster recovery and other uptime services, they are supported in the case of infrastructure because it is dedicated only to one organization. Then compliance with the standard procedures and operation, it is possible. Why? Because here the services, they are dedicated only to a single organization, so the CSP, they can match their standards with a single organization. Whereas in the case of the public mode, what we are having multiple organizations, so it becomes very difficult on the part of the CSP to provide a single standard compliance to all the users, because each and every user is having his or her own standard rules which they need to follow in their organization. Now in the hybrid model, we are having both private and public cloud. So a hybrid cloud, it is a heterogeneous distributed system resulted by combining the facilities of public and the private cloud. For this reason, sometimes they are also known by the name heterogeneous cloud. A major drawback of the private deployment is the inability to scale on demand. This is the another disadvantage of the private mode, and to efficiently address the peak loads. Here public clouds are needed, hence a hybrid cloud takes the advantage of both public and private cloud. Community cloud. Community cloud, they are distributed systems which are created by integrating the services of different clouds to address the specific needs of an industry. Here, instead of talking about a single organization, we talk about a segment of industry. Now this segment of industry, it could be your media, it could be your pharmaceutical companies, that is a pharmacy, it could be other medical oriented, for example a group of hospitals, they are, or you could say a group of cancer related hospitals, they had formed a group for a purpose research or R&D. So these are the few examples of the industries. In community cloud, the infrastructure is shared between organizations which have shared concern or task. The cloud may be managed by an organization or a third party, it depends. So here we are having a CSP and it is dedicated to a community user. We are having enterprise P, enterprise Q, and these are the organizations which are dealing in a specific segment of the market, and they have collaborated together for some specific purpose. In other words, community cloud implies an infrastructure that is shared between organizations, usually with the shared data and management concerns. For example, a community cloud, they can belong to a government of a single country, that is specific sectors. For example, municipal corporations of all the states, they may come up together and they may work on a community cloud. So the community cloud, it can be located both on and off premise depending upon the requirement. It could be present within an organization. For example, in the case of government, it cannot be a third party, whereas in the case of a media industry, it could be a third party provider. Now the sectors that use community clouds, they are basically your media industry. The media companies, they are looking for quick, simple, low-cost way for increasing the efficiency of content generation. So the most media productions, they involve an extended ecosystem of partners. In particular, the creation of digital content is the outcome of collaborative process that includes the movement of large data, massive compute intensive rendering tasks, and complex workflow executions. All these support provided over the community cloud. Healthcare, in the case of the healthcare industry, community clouds are used to share the information and knowledge on the global level. For example, the recent example is your COVID case. With sensitive data in the private infrastructure, maybe some data is to be remain with the private infrastructure, but certain details related to research and other factors, they need to be shared among these these industries. Energy and core industry, this is another example. In these sectors, the community cloud is used to cluster set of solution which collectively addresses management, deployment, and orchestration of services and the operations in this area. Then scientific research. In this organization with common interest of science, share large distributed infrastructure for scientific computing. For example, at the time of COVID, several organizations or the pharmaceutical companies, they are developing COVID vaccine. So in that case, at that time, for this particular research, they come over the community cloud. Now, what are the business models around the cloud? We are having three business models: SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS. SaaS, it is a software as a service. PaaS, it is a platform as a service. IaaS, that is infrastructure as a service. Now, earlier we had seen what are the different types of clouds we are having. Now, the question comes, what kind of services these clouds are providing? So, on the basis of the kinds of the services these clouds are providing, they have been majorly grouped into three: SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS. But these groups have later on be split into different subgroups. For example, in the case of the PaaS, we could have the network oriented. Then at that time we are having NAS, that is a network related services, and so on. We can compare these services with a pizza delivery service. This is made at home. That is, you could say, these are the if you want to make a pizza at home, then what you need cheese toppings, tomato sauce, pizza dough. That is up to here. What we are having we are having hardware. Then this we can this is the platform which we require to make the things, and this is your service. So if we talk about take a bake, that is your IaaS model. This could be compared with the IaaS model. Then in this case, the infrastructure is with the CSP, that is with the third party. So in take a bake, what you are purchasing all these things, and these are the things which is present at your premise. Then in the case of the pizza delivery service, what you are having, only the pizza delivered. So all these things are with the restaurant that is delivering the pizza. Then in the case of the dined out concept, what we are having, we are having nothing at our end, we are only availing the services. So everything is with the restaurant or the pizza hut or Domino's, etc., which from where you are availing the services. So when we compare that particular concept, that is your pizza as a service model with the cloud as a service concept, then in that case, in the case of on-premise, everything is managed by the organization. Networking, storage, servers, virtualization, OS, middleware, runtime, data, applications. Whereas in the case of the infrastructure as a service, we are using the infrastructure which is available with the CSP. Then in that case, up to virtualization, all these things to be managed by the organization. So we are having virtualization, servers, storage, networking. This is with the CSP, and all these things, they are present with the customer. Now, in the case of a platform as a service, we are using the platform over the cloud or over the internet. Then in that case, up to here, it is present with the CSP. Whereas in the case of the software, you are just availing the services. So the software, it also need to be installed at the CSP end. So up to here, nothing is with you. It is managed by the CSP. So the first model is SaaS, that is a software as a service. So software as a service business model is chosen by those users who want to use the software applications provided by the cloud service provider. They are having nothing at their end and they are using each and everything over the cloud. So the ability given to the end users to access an application over the internet that is hosted and managed by the service provider, and how this ability is given to the user. It could be with the help of login, it could be your web browsers, and it could be your CLI or APIs. Thus, the end users are exempted from managing or controlling an application. Everything is done by the CSP in this case, and the development platform and the underlying infrastructure is also with the CSP. Generally, SaaS services are hosted in service provider managed or the service provider hosted. That is, all these services, they are with the provider. The end users, they can access the services from any thin or web browser, any device you could use laptops, you could use your mobile phones. Some of the popular providers in this case is Salesforce, then Google Apps, Microsoft Office 365. PaaS, that is a platform as a service. This is the ability given to the developers to develop and deploy an application on the development platform which is provided by the service provider. For example, you need to develop an application, and for developing an application you need an environment, you need a specific architecture, and on that particular architecture you need to install certain platforms or IDs upon which you are going to develop your application, but you cannot support all those licenses, or the architecture which you want to use is also very costly. Then in that case, instead of purchasing all these things, you could avail these services, or you could use these services over the internet with the help of cloud concept. So the developers, they are exempted. They are not managing the development platform. Everything is with the CSP. Then underlying infrastructure, here the developers, they are responsible for managing the deployed application and configuring the development environment. This is what they need to do. Everything is with the CSP, but to develop an application, they have to integrate this environment or configure this development environment within their system. Generally, PaaS services, they are provided by the service provider on an on-premise. Both concepts are possible, on-premise or off-premise. The developers, they can access the development platform over the internet. They can use the web CLI, or they can use the web-based interface, that is their browsers in this case, and integrated development environment, that is IDs. Some of the popular PaaS providers, they are your Force.com, then Google App Engine is there, Red Hat, OpenShift, Heroku, and Engine Yard. Next one is your IaaS, that is infrastructure as a service. Now in this case, infrastructure means your underlying architecture, your hardware. It could be your network components, for example your routers, hubs, gateways, and we could have the storage devices, then we could have the computing power. All these need to be accessed over the cloud. So it is the ability given to the infrastructure architects to deploy or run any software on the computing resources which are provided by the CSP. Here the underlying infrastructure, such as what we can share, what we can avail over the cloud, it could be your compute, network, storage, they are managed by the service provider. Does the infrastructure architects are exempted from maintaining the data center or underlying infrastructure? All these things, they are available with the CSP. So CSP is responsible for managing all these things. The end users, they are responsible for managing applications that are running on the top of the service provider cloud infrastructure. Nothing is present with the customers or with the organizations which are availing these services over the cloud. The infrastructure, it is present with the cloud service provider. This cloud service provider is responsible for managing these hardware things, these hardware components. Whenever the load is high at the peak time, then how to manage the load, how to balance the load, all these things, they are present with the CSP and only. Generally, the IaaS services, they are provided from the service provider cloud data center. The end users can access the service from their devices, just as we have seen in the case of the past. Similarly, here we could have the CLI. Now, this CLI, in both the cases, it should be web-based. One CLI, command line interface, which you use within your system, but this CLI, it has to be over the internet. That is, it should be web based. Whatever command you are giving, that command is first going on the end of the provider, and there all these commands, they are going to be interpreted, and upon the basis of the interpretation, the things are being executed at the CSP end, and then the services are being accessed by the users. Or application programming interfaces, that is, or APIs, which is provided by the service providers. Some of the popular IaaS providers in this case, for instance, Amazon, it has provided AWS, Google, we are having Compute Engine, then we are having OpenStack, and another example is Eucalyptus. These are the major players in the cloud computing. There are a number of companies which have emerged in the field of cloud computing in the past decade. Here the few of them are, for example, Amazon. Now there is some now at this current scenario, the major players, they are Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Adobe, IBM. Amazon has given web services that is known by the name AWS. From Microsoft, we are having Azure. Google, it has given an integrated cloud platform, that is a Google cloud platform. Adobe has also given a platform. Then we are having IBM Cloud, Rackspace, Red Hat also has given certain services. Then Salesforce, Oracle, SAP, Verizon, Navisite, Dropbox, these are the few names in your cloud computing. All these providers, they has provided a set or a subset of a cloud service. For example, your Amazon, they are dealing in your IaaS, PaaS and SaaS. Similarly, we are having Azure. Salesforce, it is basically a SaaS related service, and so on. So, in this particular presentation, what we have learnt today, we have learnt what are the major types of cloud, that is your private cloud, public cloud, community cloud, and hybrid cloud. Why we call them as public, private, hybrid or community. Then we have seen what are the different business model. Basically what are the different types of services which we could avail over the cloud in the case of cloud computing. Upon the basis of those types of services, we are having three business models.